A 7-year-old girl whispered to Santa Claus that it would be her mother's last Christmas, unaware that a wealthy father was listening. What he did changed everything forever. A story that will touch your heart. Subscribe, leave your like, and comment where you are watching from. The Mall of America was bustling that December afternoon. The Christmas lights twinkled rapidly, creating a magical atmosphere that contrasted with the typical summer warmth of Minnesota. Among the golden and red decorations, a long line of eager children stretched in front of Santa's throne, set up in the center of the food court. Impatient parents checked their watches, mothers adjusted their children's hair, and the buzz of conversations mixed with the sound of Christmas music echoing through the speakers. David Smith adjusted the itchy fake beard that scratched his face. At 42, the businessman never imagined he would be there, sweating inside a fluffy red suit, pretending to be the jolly old man for a charity event organized by his construction company. His normally cold and calculating brown eyes during business meetings now tried to convey joy behind the character's round glasses. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered from years of swimming at the gym, with grey hair at his temples that revealed the stress of recent years. "Next," announced the young woman dressed as an elf who was managing the line. David took a deep breath when he saw a small girl approach timidly. Lily was 7 years old and seemed even smaller in that gigantic environment. Her curly brown hair was tied in 2 pigtails adorned with red bows, and she wore a simple but well-kept floral dress. Her large, expressive eyes carried an unusual seriousness for someone her age, as if she held secrets too heavy for a child. "Hi, Santa," she said softly, climbing onto his lap with some hesitation. "Hello, my dear," David replied, modulating his voice to sound deeper and warmer. "Have you been a good girl this year?" Lily nodded, but did not smile. Instead, she looked around carefully, as if checking that no one was listening. Then she leaned toward David's ear. "Can I tell you a secret?" she whispered. David felt something tighten in his chest. "Of course, little one. Go ahead." Lily brought her tiny lips close to his ear, and her voice came out as a sigh laden with sadness. "Santa, this will be my mom's last Christmas. She's sick, but pretends she's not. I know because I heard her crying in the bathroom last night. Can you do a miracle and let her stay with me forever?" The world seemed to stop around David. The noise of the mall turned into a distant echo, and he felt as if someone had just squeezed his heart tightly. The girl's words echoed in his mind, instantly transporting him back 3 years, when he himself had lost his wife, Helena, to an aggressive cancer that took her in just a few months. "Mom works at 2 schools to buy my medicine when I get sick," Lily continued, still whispering. "She always says it's okay, but I see that she's sad. Grandma Alice is also worried. They think I don't understand, but I do." David swallowed hard, struggling to maintain his composure. His experience with Helena had been devastating. He had felt completely powerless, watching the woman he loved wither away without being able to do anything effective to save her. The guilt for not having been able to protect her still consumed him, especially since he had immersed himself so deeply in work during her treatment that he lost precious moments that would never come back. "And what would you like for Christmas?" he asked, his voice slightly choked. Lily looked at him with those deep eyes and replied, "I don't want a toy, Santa. I want you to heal my mum. And if you can't heal her, I want her to suffer no more. She's the kindest person in the whole world." At that moment, David saw a woman approaching from the side of the Christmas scene. Sarah Johnson was 40 years old, and even from a distance one could see the natural beauty that fatigue tried to hide. She was brunette, with wavy hair tied up in a messy bun, wearing a light blue blouse and jeans, the uniform of someone coming straight from work. There was something in her demeanor that conveyed dignity and strength, despite the lines of worry etched around her brown eyes. "Lily, come here, sweetheart," Sarah called, waving discreetly. "Don't take too long. There are other children waiting." David observed the interaction between mother and daughter. Sarah smiled, but he, trained by years in business to read facial expressions, could see the fatigue she was trying to hide. There was a subtle pallor to her skin, and the way she moved suggested someone who was fighting against her own body. "I'll be right there, Mom," Lily replied, then turned back to David. "Are you going to try to help?" "I will do my best," David promised, and for the first time in years he felt he was making a promise that truly mattered. Lily got off his lap and ran toward her mother. David watched them walk away, noticing how Sarah picked her daughter up with extra care, as if each movement cost energy she barely had to spare. Behind them, an elderly woman in her 60s waited patiently. Grandma Alice was a typical Midwestern woman, short and sturdy, with grey hair tied in a simple bun and wearing a colourful blouse. Her eyes, however, carried the shrewdness of someone who had lived a lot and learned to protect those she loved. "Grandma Alice, Santa said he will help Mom," Lily announced excitedly. Alice cast a suspicious glance at David, as if she could sense that there was something different about that meeting. Her matriarchal intuition was on high alert. "Is that so, my granddaughter? And what else did you talk about?" asked Sarah, stroking her daughter's hair. "It's our little secret," replied Lily, winking at David in the distance. As the trio moved away, David remained seated on the golden throne, completely shaken. The next boy in line was already approaching, but he could barely concentrate. That whisper had awakened something inside him that had been dormant for 3 years. The desire to fight for someone, to use his resources and influence for something that truly mattered. For the rest of the afternoon, David mechanically played his role as Santa Claus, but his mind was entirely focused on the family he had just met. Lily had planted a seed that he knew he couldn't ignore. For the first time since Helena's death, he felt genuinely motivated to step out of his emotional comfort zone. When the event ended and he shed the costume, David discreetly sought information about Sarah from the charity organization. He discovered that she was a teacher of English at 2 public schools in Southside Chicago and had signed up for the low-income family registry so that Lily could receive a Christmas gift. That night, in his apartment in Lincoln Park, David couldn't sleep. He looked out the window of his 22nd floor apartment at the city lights and thought about the promise he had made to Lily. He knew his life was about to change. And for the first time in years, that didn't scare him. David woke up the next morning with a determination he hadn't felt in years. It was still 6 in the morning when he called Rodrigo Mendez, his personal assistant and right-hand man at the company for over a decade. Rodrigo was an efficient, discreet man, accustomed to his boss's unusual requests, but he was surprised by the urgency in David's voice. "Rodrigo, I need you to do a thorough but discreet search on a teacher named Sarah Johnson. She works in public schools in Southside. I want to know everything: financial situation, medical history if possible, family composition, address, and I don't want anyone to know we're investigating." On the other end of the line, Rodrigo hesitated. "David, this is unusual. May I ask why?" "It's personal and urgent," David replied, already heading to the closet. "I want the report by the end of the day." As he dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit, David mentally assessed the situation. His company, Smith Construction, was one of the largest in the country, with government and private contracts worth millions. He had resources, influence, and contacts in the medical field, but he also knew he needed to tread carefully. A direct approach could be seen as invasive or condescending. By 8 in the morning, David was in his office on the 30th floor of the commercial building on Michigan Avenue, but he couldn't focus on the financial spreadsheets spread across the mahogany desk. For the first time in 3 years, something took precedence over business. Rodrigo arrived in the office at 5 in the afternoon, carrying a brown folder. He was a 40-year-old man with dark hair and glasses, always dressed conservatively. His expression revealed concern. "David, I got the information you requested, but I need to warn you about something," said Rodrigo, closing the door behind him. "This situation could be delicate." David gestured for him to sit. "Go on." Sarah Johnson, 40 years old, a graduate teacher from the University of Chicago with a specialization in American literature. Widowed since her daughter was born. Her husband died in a motorcycle accident while she was pregnant. She lives in a modest neighborhood with her daughter Lily and her mother-in-law Alice in a rented 2-bedroom house. Rodrigo paused, consulting his notes. "David, she was diagnosed 2 months ago with advanced lupus. She's receiving treatment at the University of Chicago Medical Center, but the waiting list for specialized procedures is long." David felt his stomach tighten. Lupus. An autoimmune disease that could be managed with proper treatment but could be fatal if not treated correctly. Just like Helena, who had also faced an illness that medicine could have controlled if they had access to the best resources from the start. "Continue," David said, his voice tense. "The financial situation is critical. She earns approximately $3,000 a month at the 2 schools where she works, but the medications cost nearly $2,000 monthly. Her mother-in-law helps with a small pension, but it's not enough. There have been reports of late rent payments in recent months." Rodrigo handed over some printed photographs. One showed Sarah leaving one of the schools, clearly exhausted. Another showed Lily playing in a small playground near their home, supervised by Grandma Alice. "David," Rodrigo said, leaning forward, "may I suggest you think carefully before getting involved? Not because of any wrongdoing on her part, but because situations like this can complicate quickly, especially considering your public position." David studied the photographs for a long moment. Sarah walked with the upright posture of someone who maintained dignity despite the circumstances, but there was something vulnerable in her expression when she thought no one was watching. Lily always appeared smiling in the photos, a child who clearly didn't fully understand the gravity of the situation but carried a precocious maturity in her gaze. "I want you to do one more thing," David finally said. "Find out exactly which schools she works at, and if there are any scholarship programs or charities we can activate." The next morning, David did something he had never done in his career. He cancelled all meetings and personally drove to the south side of the city. His black BMW stood out in the lower middle-class residential neighborhood where Lincoln High School, one of the schools where Sarah worked, was located. The building was a typical public school in Chicago, walls painted in faded yellow and green, bars on the windows, a concrete yard, where during recess, the students in their uniforms played together. David parked across the street and watched the activity for nearly an hour until he saw Sarah exit through the main gate. She wore a navy midi-skirt and a white blouse, carrying a large fabric bag and a tote filled with books. Even from a distance, David noticed she walked slower than the other teachers, occasionally stopping to rest, pretending to search for something in her bag. Impulsively, David got out of the car and crossed the street. "Excuse me," he said, approaching her. "Aren't you Lily's mother, the little girl who talked to Santa Claus yesterday at the Mall of America?" Sarah looked at him in surprise, clearly not recognizing him without the costume. "I am." "And you are?" "David Smith," he replied, extending his hand. "I work with the organization that hosted yesterday's event. Actually, I was looking for you." Sarah hesitated before shaking his hand, and David noticed her fingers were cold despite the midday heat of Chicago. "Looking for me? Why?" "Well, your daughter made a very strong impression on our Santa Claus," David said, choosing his words carefully. "She mentioned that you are a teacher, and our company has an educational scholarship program for children of educators. I thought you might be interested." Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly. David realized she was too smart to accept such convenient coincidences. "What kind of scholarship?" she asked, clearly cautious. "For a quality private school. We cover everything from tuition to school supplies and uniforms. It's a program we developed to support public education professionals." Sarah studied him for a long moment. There was something in his posture, the way he was dressed, the expensive watch on his wrist, the confident way he spoke, that screamed money and power. But there was also something genuine in his eyes when he mentioned Lily. "Mr. Smith," she finally said, "can I be direct with you?" "Please." "Yesterday at the mall, Lily talked for a long time with Santa Claus. When she got home, she said she was sure he would help our family. A 7-year-old doesn't develop that certainty out of nowhere." Sarah crossed her arms. "You were there, weren't you?" David took a deep breath. He had underestimated her intelligence. "I was," he admitted. "I was Santa Claus." "And why would a businessman dress up as Santa Claus in a mall?" "Company charity event. First and last time, I can assure you," David said, managing a genuine smile for the first time. "Your daughter told me something that touched me. I lost my wife 3 years ago. I know what it feels like to be powerless." Sarah felt her legs weaken slightly. The sincerity in his voice was undeniable, but also frightening. "Lily talked about my illness, didn't she?" "She did, and I would like to help if you allow me." "Listen, Mr. Smith," Sarah said, straightening her shoulders. "I appreciate the intention, but I don't accept charity, especially from strangers." "It's not charity," David insisted. "It's a legitimate program from the company. And as for the rest, maybe we can talk more calmly. Do you have a few minutes for coffee?" Sarah looked around, noticing that some passing students were watching the conversation with curiosity. A well-dressed man talking intensely with a teacher didn't go unnoticed in that neighborhood. "I can't right now. I have to pick up Lily from her school and then teach at another school at 2. And on the weekend, Saturday morning." Sarah hesitated. All her life experience warned her to be careful with powerful men offering easy help. But something in David's expression, a vulnerability he tried to hide behind his business demeanor, made her consider. "Saturday at 10, at Mr. Johnson's bakery, on the street by my house. Lily will be with me." "Perfect," David said. "Can you give me the address?" After Sarah provided him with the information, David returned to his car with a strange feeling in his chest. He had lied when he said the scholarship program already existed. He would have to create it in the coming days. But he hadn't lied about his motivations. For the first time in years, he felt like he was doing something that truly mattered. That night, David called his personal lawyer and instructed him to formally create an educational assistance program for Smith Construction. Then he stayed up late researching lupus, available treatments, and the best specialists in Chicago. He had a promise to keep. Saturday dawned with that characteristic summer sun of Chicago that promised intense heat even before 9 in the morning. David woke up earlier than usual in his apartment in Lincoln Park, filled with an anxiety he hadn't felt since college when preparing for important presentations. He chose a casual outfit, dark jeans and a light blue shirt, in an attempt to appear less intimidating, but the result still screamed money in the details: the quality fabric, the impeccable cut, the flashy watch on his wrist. At 9:40, David parked his BMW 2 blocks from Mr. Johnson's bakery, preferring to walk to avoid drawing unnecessary attention in the residential neighborhood of Lincoln Park where Sarah lived. The streets were typical of the area, old houses mixed with small buildings, leafy trees providing shade to the asphalt, and that calm weekend movement of a family neighborhood. The bakery was a small and cozy establishment, with the smell of fresh bread wafting down the sidewalk. Red formica tables occupied a small area in the back, and a refrigerated counter displayed golden pastries and homemade cakes. Mr. Johnson, a 60-year-old man with a grey moustache, greeted customers by name. It was clearly a neighborhood gathering spot. David arrived a few minutes early and ordered a coffee, choosing a table in the corner that offered privacy. He was nervous, something that hadn't happened to him in years during business meetings, but that situation was completely different. There were no contracts to close or profits to maximize. There was just a family that needed help and his own inexplicable need to offer it. Santa Claus! Lily's high-pitched voice echoed through the bakery, turning all heads. The girl had recognized David immediately and ran towards him, leaving an older woman behind carrying a grocery bag. "Lily, come back here," called Grandma Alice, clearly embarrassed by her granddaughter's excitement. Sarah appeared at the door seconds later, wearing a simple floral dress and flat sandals. Even in her casual outfit, she maintained that natural elegance that David had noticed on their first meeting. Her hair was loose, framing her delicate features, but he immediately noticed the more pronounced dark circles and a pallor that hadn't been present at school. "Lily, what have I told you about shouting in public places?" Sarah said, approaching the table with a half-embarrassed smile. "Sorry, Mum, but it's Santa Claus," insisted Lily, already settled into the chair next to David. "Good morning," David greeted, standing up politely. "You must be Grandma Alice, whom Lily talks so much about." Alice studied David from head to toe with that experienced gaze of someone who had raised a child alone and learned to be wary of easy promises. She was a robust woman, with sun-kissed skin from the Midwest, grey hair tied back in a simple ponytail, and wearing a colourful blouse with a midi skirt. Her calloused hands betrayed years of domestic work. "I'm Alice Johnson," she said, shaking David's hand with more strength than he expected, "and you are this wealthy businessman who wants to help my family out of the kindness of your heart, right?" The brutal frankness of the question caught David off guard. Sarah closed her eyes, clearly mortified. "Grandma Alice, please." "No, Sarah, I want to hear his answer," insisted Alice, crossing her arms. "Because in my experience, a rich man doesn't offer help without wanting something in return." David took a deep breath. There was something refreshing about Alice's direct honesty, even if it was uncomfortable. "You are right to be suspicious," he said calmly. "If I were in your position, I would ask the same questions. The truth is that your granddaughter told me something that deeply moved me. I lost my wife 3 years ago, and I know what it feels like not to be able to protect those we love. And so you decided to play the hero," Alice provoked. "Grandma Alice," exclaimed Sarah, but David gestured for her not to worry. "Maybe," he admitted, "or maybe I'm trying to find a way to make sense of my experience of loss. I don't know, Grandma Alice. I just know that I have resources that can help, and you have needs that I can meet." Lily, who had been listening to the entire conversation in silence, suddenly spoke up. "Grandma, he's good. I felt it when I talked to him." Alice looked at her granddaughter, and something in her expression softened. "Lily has a gift for sensing people," she admitted grudgingly, "but still—" "How about we order some snacks and talk calmly?" suggested Sarah, trying to ease the tension. Mr. Johnson came to the table personally, clearly curious about the presence of a well-dressed stranger in his neighborhood bakery. "Good morning, Sarah, Grandma Alice, Lily," he greeted with a heavy Portuguese accent. "How are you today?" "Good morning, Mr. Johnson. This is Mr. David," Sarah introduced. "David, this is Mr. Johnson, owner of this wonderful bakery for over 20 years. David stood up to greet the Portuguese man, who quickly assessed him from head to toe. "First time here, huh? Welcome. What will you have?" Lily ordered a grilled cheese sandwich and orange juice, Sarah a coffee with milk and toasted bread, and Alice just black coffee. David ordered a cappuccino and a croissant, but barely touched the food when it arrived. "So," Sarah said after Mr. Johnson walked away, "tell me about this scholarship program from your company." David had spent the night preparing for this conversation. Moreira Construction has a social commitment to education. We created a program that offers full scholarships at private schools for children of public education professionals. "Created when?" Alice asked suspiciously. "This week," David admitted, looking directly at her. "The program is new." "Very convenient," Alice murmured. "Grandma Alice, let him speak," Sarah pleaded, but David noticed that she was also skeptical. "Look, I'm going to be completely transparent with you," David said, leaning forward. "Yes, I created this program after meeting you, but it's not a scheme to deceive you. It's a real program with legal documentation that will also help other families. Lily would be the first beneficiary, but not the only one." Lily was playing with her juice straw, clearly bored with the adults' conversation, until she said, "Mum, can I tell David about the new school you wanted to enroll me in?" Sarah paled. "Lily, what new school?" David asked gently. "There's a school near our house that Mum said was really good, but it cost a lot of money," Lily explained innocently. She got sad when she saw the price. Sarah took a deep breath. "There's a private school 3/4 of a mile from our house, St. Cecilia Academy. I dreamed of enrolling Lily there, but the tuition is $1,200, plus materials, uniforms, extracurricular activities," Alice added. "Almost $2,000 a month. More than Sarah earns at school." David quickly did some mental calculations. The program would cover all those costs, and there would also be a monthly stipend of $500 for study-related expenses. "Why are you doing this?" Sarah asked directly. "And don't accept because I have the financial means as an answer. I want to know the real reason." David looked at Lily, who had finished her snack and was now drawing on a paper napkin with a pen she found in her mum's bag. She was drawing a family, 4 stick figures holding hands. The sun was shining brightly, with a house in the background and a smiling sun in the sky. "When my wife passed away, I felt completely useless," he said softly. "I had money, connections, the best doctors, but I couldn't save her. Since then, I've been living with the question of what good are resources if you can't use them to protect the ones you love." Sarah felt a tightening in her chest. There was a genuine pain in his voice that resonated with her own experience of loss. "Your daughter gave me a chance to use what I have in a meaningful way," David continued. "Maybe it's selfish of me, this need to feel useful, but the practical outcome is that I can offer Lily an education that will open doors for her." "And what about me?" Sarah asked. "Lily mentioned that I was sick. What else do you know?" David hesitated. "I know you have lupus. I know that treatment is expensive and that the waiting list for public health care is long." Grandma Alice and Sarah exchanged tense glances. "How do you know this?" Grandma Alice asked coldly. "I did some discreet research," David admitted. "I know it may seem invasive, but I needed to understand the situation before offering effective help." "What kind of help?" Sarah asked, her voice low. "I have contacts in the medical field. I can facilitate access to specialists, more modern treatments, medications, at no cost to you." The silence that followed was heavy. Lily continued drawing, oblivious to the tension that had taken over the table. "Done!" she announced, showing the drawing. "Look, Grandma, it's our family." Grandma Alice took the napkin and studied the drawing. There were 4 figures, one larger that clearly represented herself, 2 medium-sized figures that were Sarah and David, and 1 small figure that was Lily. "Why did you draw David in our family?" Sarah asked gently. Lily shrugged. Because he's going to take care of us now." The simplicity of the answer echoed around the table like a prophecy. David felt something shift in his chest, a mix of responsibility and hope he hadn't experienced in years. "I need to think," Sarah finally said. "This is a lot." "Of course," David agreed. "There's no rush, but if you'll allow me, I'd like to take the first step. How about we visit St. Cecilia Academy on Monday just to check it out? No commitment." Sarah looked at Grandma Alice, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "All right," Sarah said, "but with one condition." "What?" "I will pay what I can. I won't accept complete charity." David smiled for the first time since he arrived at the bakery. "I accept the condition." Lily clapped her hands, as if she understood that something important had been decided. And perhaps she did. Sometimes the decisions that change everything start with a child's drawing on a neighborhood bakery napkin. Monday dawned cloudy, with heavy clouds threatening rain at any moment, typical of summer in Chicago. David had spent the entire weekend thinking about the meeting at the bakery, analyzing every exchanged word, every expression on Sarah's and Grandma Alice's faces. He was nervous in a way he hadn't felt since the early years of his business, when every contract could mean the difference between success and failure. St. Cecilia Academy was located on a tree-lined street in the Lincoln Park neighborhood, just a 10-minute walk from Sarah's house. It was a mid-sized private school with modern yet inviting architecture, exposed brick walls, large windows, and a well-kept garden at the entrance. David arrived promptly at 2 in the afternoon, as they had agreed, and found Sarah waiting at the gate with Lily. Sarah was wearing black dress pants and a white blouse, clearly her best work outfit. There was something touching about how she tried to appear worthy of the environment, straightening her shoulders and checking her hair in the reflection of the glass at the entrance. Lily, for her part, was radiant in a blue dress that Grandma Alice had spent the entire morning ironing. "Good morning," David greeted, noticing that Sarah avoided looking him directly in the eye. "Good morning. I hope you know I spent the whole weekend wondering if this is a good idea," she said, her voice carrying a mix of hope and apprehension. "Me too," David admitted, "but sometimes the best decisions are the ones that make us uncomfortable." Lily held her mother's hand with one of hers and reached out to take David's hand with the other, creating a chain among the three that did not go unnoticed by the school gatekeeper. "Mr. Smith?" the uniformed man asked. "The principal is waiting." They were led through clean, well-lit corridors, decorated with students' artwork and informative murals about educational projects. The smell was of new books and school supplies, a fragrance that reminded David of his own student days in Atlanta, when his father, a small contractor, made sacrifices to pay for his education at a private school. The principal, Ms. Helena Carter, was a woman in her 50s, with grey hair neatly tied in an elegant bun and wearing a navy blue blazer. Her office was welcoming, with a bookshelf full of books, plants in the windows, and comfortable chairs arranged in a semicircle. "Mr. Smith, it's a pleasure to meet you in person," she said, extending her hand. "I received the information about the scholarship program from Smith Construction. It's an admirable initiative." "The pleasure is mine," David replied. "This is Sarah Johnson, a public school teacher, and her daughter Lily, our first candidate for the program." Helena knelt down to Lily's level. "Hi, sweetie. What a beautiful dress. How old are you?" "7, Lily replied shyly, hiding behind her mother's skirt. "Lily is in 2nd grade, Sarah explained. She's a very bright child and loves to read." "That's wonderful," Helena said. "What kind of books do you like, Lily?" Lily looked at her mother, who made an encouraging gesture. "I like the books that Mommy reads with me. She does different voices for each character." David noticed Sarah blush slightly. There was something. It was deeply touching in the simplicity of that interaction. A mother who, despite all the difficulties, found time to read stories with her daughter. "How about we take a walk around the school?" suggested Lily. During the tour, David noticed how Sarah absorbed every detail: the well-equipped library, the science labs, the sports court, the classrooms with smart boards. Her eyes sparkled with a mix of enchantment and melancholy, as if she were seeing a world she had always wished for her daughter, but never believed was possible to reach. "Our methodology is constructivist," Lily explained as they walked. "We focus on the holistic development of the child, not just academic content. We have art classes, music, specialized physical education, and psychopedagogical support." Lily ran a few steps ahead, stopping to observe aquariums with colorful fish and interactive panels that the school displayed in the hallways. Her excitement was contagious. "Mom, look, there's a garden here at school," she exclaimed, pointing to an outdoor area where older students tended to beds with vegetables. "It's our sustainability project," said Lily. "The children learn about healthy eating and environmental responsibility by planting and caring for their own food." David watched Sarah approach the window overlooking the garden and saw a tear escape her eyes. She quickly wiped it away, but he had noticed. "Miss Sarah," said Lily after a moment, "may I ask which schools you work at?" "Lincoln High School and St. Cecilia Academy," Sarah replied. "I teach English for elementary and middle school." "I know both schools. I understand that working in public education is challenging," said Lily with genuine empathy. "Your dedication to education is admirable." They finished the tour in the main courtyard, where some children were playing during the afternoon break. Lily observed everything with fascination, especially a group of girls her age who were playing jump rope. "Would you like to play with them?" Lily asked kindly. Lily looked at Sarah, who nodded. The girl ran towards the other children, who immediately included her in the game. Within minutes, she was laughing and jumping rope as if she had always studied there. "She adapts easily," noted David. "Children are resilient," agreed Lily. "And Lily seems to have a particularly welcoming personality." Sarah watched her daughter play with a complex expression, joy mixed with deep pain. David realized she was struggling with her own emotions. "Miss Lily," said David, "can we discuss the practical details of the program?" They stepped away a few paces, allowing Sarah to watch Lily. "The scholarship will fully cover tuition, educational materials, uniforms, and extracurricular activities," David explained in a low voice. "There is also a monthly stipend for study-related expenses." "That's extremely generous," said Lily. "And what about the selection process?" "Lily has already been accepted," said David. "The program was created specifically for cases like hers." Lily raised her eyebrows slightly. "I understand there is a personal motivation behind this scholarship." David hesitated. Lily was clearly an experienced educator, accustomed to dealing with different types of families and situations. Lying to her would be futile. "There is. The family has gone through some difficulties, and I identified with their situation. But that does not diminish Lily's merit or the seriousness of the program." "I'm not questioning your motivations," said Lily gently. "I just want to ensure that everyone involved understands the emotional implications of such a situation." David looked at Sarah, who continued to watch Lily play. "What do you mean?" "Mr. Smith, you clearly care a lot about this family. That's beautiful, but it can also create complex emotional dependencies. For Lily, you may become a father figure. For the mother—" Lily paused. "Well, gratitude can easily be confused with other feelings." Lily's words hit David like a punch. He had not fully considered the emotional ramifications of his involvement with the family. "And do you think I should step back?" "Not necessarily, but I think all of you should be aware of these dynamics," said Lily. "Especially considering that Ms. Sarah is going through a very vulnerable time." At that moment, Lily ran back to them, breathless and smiling. "Mom, the girls invited me to Sophia's birthday party next week. Can I go?" Sarah knelt down to her daughter's height. "Let's see, my daughter. First, we need to know if you will study here." "Of course I will," said Lily, as if there were no doubt. "David promised, right, David?" All heads turned to David. He felt the weight of the responsibility he was taking on. Not just financial, but emotional. Lily already saw him as someone she could completely trust, someone who kept promises. And Sarah looked at him with a mix of gratitude and apprehension, as if she understood that accepting that help meant opening her life to a stranger in ways she could barely imagine. "Yes," David finally said, "I promised." An hour later, they were sitting in a diner near the school, Lily having a strawberry milkshake while the adults drank coffee. "So?" David asked. "What did you think of the school?" "It's perfect," said Lily immediately. "It has a huge library and the teachers are nice," David laughed. "And you, Sarah?" Sarah stirred the sugar in her coffee for a long time before responding. "It's more than I ever dreamed for her," she finally said. "But it scares me." "Why?" "Because I don't know if I can meet the expectations. Other mothers certainly have the means to provide things I can't. Birthday parties at expensive venues, designer clothes, trips during holidays. Lily doesn't need that to be happy," said David. "She needs love, attention, and educational opportunities. You already provide the first two better than any wealthy mother I know." Sarah stared at him for a moment. "Do you have children?" David swallowed hard. "I do. A 15-year-old son, Felipe. We haven't had a very close relationship since his mother. He's gone." "Why?" "Because I didn't know how to handle my own pain and ended up distancing myself from him too," David admitted. "Alex lives more with his paternal grandparents than with me." Lily had stopped drinking her milkshake and was listening to the conversation intently. "Why don't you go get your son?" she asked, with that brutal honesty of children. David smiled sadly. "It's not that simple, little one." "Of course it is," insisted Lily. "You just need to say that you miss him and want him to come home." Sarah and David exchanged glances over the girl's head. There was a disconcerting wisdom in Lily's words, a simplicity that cut through all the emotional complexity that adults created. "Maybe you're right," David said softly. "I'm always right about family," Lily said with conviction. "Grandma Alice says I have a gift." That night, after dropping Sarah and Lily off at home, David drove to Lily's parents' mansion in Beverly Hills, where Alex had been living since his mother's death. It was almost 9 o'clock when he rang the doorbell, but he knew. His son usually stayed up late, studying or playing video games. Lily, his mother-in-law, answered the door. She was an elegant 70-year-old woman with perfectly styled white hair and wearing a pink knit outfit. Her expression tightened slightly upon seeing him. "David, we weren't expecting you." "Good evening, Lily. I came to talk to Alex." "It's a bit late, don't you think?" "It's important." Lily hesitated, then stepped aside to let him in. The house was immaculate, decorated with period furniture and carefully chosen artwork. It was the kind of environment that David had grown up admiring and later conquered. But now it felt cold and lifeless to him. "Alex is in his room," Lily said. "But David, maybe it would be better if you called next time." David climbed the marble staircase to the second floor, his footsteps echoing in the silence of the house. The door to Alex's room was slightly ajar, and he could hear the sound of a video game. He knocked softly. "Alex, can I come in?" "Dad?" The boy's voice showed genuine surprise. "Sure, come in." Alex was a teenage version of David, tall for his age with wavy brown hair and intelligent eyes. But where David radiated confidence and control, Alex displayed a melancholy that seemed too heavy for his 15 years. He paused the game and turned to his father. "Is something wrong?" David sat on the edge of the bed, something he hadn't done in a long time. "I wanted to talk to you about something. I met a family, a mother with a little girl. The girl asked me a question today that I can't get out of my head." Alex furrowed his brow. "What question?" "She asked me why I don't go get my son." The silence that followed was heavy with 3 years of unresolved hurt. Alex looked away toward the window. "And what was your answer?" "I said it wasn't that simple. But she insisted that it was." David paused. "Alex, I miss you. Every day." Alex turned to look at him, and David saw tears forming in his son's eyes. "Then why have you never said that before?" "Because I'm a proud idiot who doesn't know how to deal with feelings," David admitted. "When your mother died, I felt so guilty, so useless that I thought you would be better off without me." "Dad." Alex moved closer and for the first time in years hugged his father. "I miss you too." David held his son tightly, feeling 3 years of pain and distance beginning to dissolve. Maybe Lily was right. Sometimes the most important things were indeed simple. "Alex, do you want to come home with me? For real this time?" The boy pulled back to look him in the eyes. "Are you sure? You won't disappear again when things get tough?" "I'm sure, and I won't disappear." Alex smiled for the first time since David arrived. "Then yes, I want to go home." As he helped his son pack his things, David thought of Lily and her simple wisdom about families. A 7-year-old had managed in one afternoon what he hadn't been able to do in 3 years: face his fears and fight for what truly mattered. Maybe it was time to stop running and start building, not just buildings, but relationships that truly lasted. The next morning, David woke up with a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. The apartment finally felt alive again. Alex was in the kitchen making breakfast, still in his pajamas, softly humming a song that was playing in his headphones. The apartment in West Side, once too quiet and overly organized, now had life. A school backpack thrown on the sofa, sneakers in the middle of the living room, the smell of toasted bread in the air. "Good morning, Dad," Alex greeted, taking one of the headphones off. "I made extra strong coffee, just the way you like it." David smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude. "Thank you, son. How did you sleep?" "Better than in the last 3 years, Alex admitted, pouring 2 cups. "Dad, can I ask something about that family you met?" David sat at the kitchen island, watching his son. Alex had inherited from Lily the ability to ask direct questions that got straight to the point. "Sure, go ahead." "Do you like the girl's mother?" The question caught David off guard. He started to deny it automatically, but stopped. Alex deserved honesty. "I care about her. About both of them," he said carefully. "It's a complicated situation." Alex studied him for a moment. "Complicated how?" "She's sick, needs expensive medical help. I can help, but she's too proud to accept charity, and I don't know if my feelings are genuine, or if it's just guilt over your mother's death." Alex nodded thoughtfully. "Can I meet them? Do you want to?" "I do. If they're going to be important in your life, I want to." Eduardo felt something tighten in his chest. Alex was acting like a mature adult, willing to support his father's decisions, even if it meant sharing his attention. "Alex, you know that nothing and no one will change how much I love you, right?" "I know, Dad. But I also know that you've been different since you met them. More present. I want to meet the people who made you come back." 2 hours later, Eduardo was parking in front of St. Cecilia Academy. It was Marina's first day of school, and he had offered to accompany Sarah in the transition. Alex was in the passenger seat, curious and slightly nervous. Sarah was waiting at the school gate with Marina, who was wearing her new uniform, a navy skirt, white blouse, and a blazer with the school crest. The girl was radiant, spinning around to show off her new outfit to anyone who wanted to see. "Eduardo!" Marina shouted upon seeing him, running towards the car. "Good morning, little one," Eduardo said, getting out of the car. "Ready for your first day at the new school?" "Absolutely," she replied, then noticed Alex getting out of the passenger seat. "Who is he?" "This is my surprise," Eduardo said, placing his hand on his son's shoulder. "Marina, this is Alex, my son. Alex, this is Marina." Alex bent down to Marina's height. "Hi, Marina. I've heard a lot about you." Marina studied him with that penetrating gaze children use to assess adults. "Are you the son that Eduardo missed?" Alex laughed, looking at his father. "I am." "And, are you the girl who told him to come pick me up?" "I am. And it worked, right?" Marina said, clapping her hands. "I told you it was simple." Sarah approached, clearly surprised by Alex's presence. Eduardo noticed that she had dressed with special care. A light blue dress that highlighted her eyes, loose hair, and a light makeup that couldn't completely hide her growing pallor. "Sarah, this is my son Alex," Eduardo introduced. "Alex, this is Sarah, the teacher I mentioned." "Nice to meet you," Alex said politely, extending his hand. "My dad said you're the English teacher. I love literature." Sarah smiled, clearly impressed with the boy's manners. "The pleasure is mine, Alex. What kind of literature do you like?" "I'm reading Mark Twain right now, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer." "A bit heavy for my age, but it's fascinating," Alex replied. Eduardo watched the conversation with satisfaction. Alex was genuinely trying to make a good impression, and Sarah responded with the natural warmth she showed to all young people. "Mom," Marina interrupted, "can I show the new school to Alex?" "Of course, sweetheart, but let's go in quickly. You can't be late on your first day." They walked together towards the school gate. Eduardo noticed that Alex naturally offered his arm for Marina to hold on to when she had trouble stepping up a higher step, and that Sarah observed the gesture with approval. "Is Alex going to study here too?" Marina asked as they walked. "No, little one, I study at another school, but maybe I can come pick you up sometimes if your mom allows it," Alex said, looking at Sarah. "That would be very kind," Sarah said, "but we don't want to be a bother." "It's not a bother," Alex interrupted. "It would be nice to have a little sister to look after." The word "little sister" hung in the air, like a declaration of intentions. Eduardo saw Sarah swallow hard, clearly moved by how naturally Alex had included Marina in his life. At the school's reception, they found teacher Helen Carter, who greeted Marina enthusiastically. "Good morning, Marina. Ready to meet your new classmates?" Marina nodded excitedly, but suddenly grabbed Sarah's hand. "Mum, are you going to stay here?" "I can't, sweetheart. I have to work, but Eduardo will stay with you until you feel comfortable, okay?" Eduardo bent down to Marina's height. "Just until you make new friends. Then I'll leave and pick you up at dismissal." "And I'll be here at dismissal too," Alex added. "We can get ice cream on the way home." Marina smiled, clearly reassured by the presence of both. "Okay, but you promise you'll pick me up?" "We promise," Eduardo said. Sarah knelt down to say goodbye to her daughter, fixing her hair and giving her a kiss on the forehead. "Be a good girl, study hard, and make friends. I love you very much." "I love you too, Mom. And don't be sad at work thinking about me, okay?" Marina's maturity in comforting her mother deeply touched everyone present. Sarah fought back tears. "I'll try," she promised. After Marina entered the classroom with the teacher, Eduardo, Alex, and Sarah walked towards the parking lot in silence. "She's amazing," Alex finally said. "It's hard to believe she's only 7. "The circumstances made her grow up faster than usual," Sarah explained sadly. "Sometimes I feel guilty about that." "Why?" Alex asked, genuinely curious. "Because a child should only worry about toys and cartoons, not about their mother's health or financial struggles," Sarah replied. Alex stopped walking and turned to her. "Can I be honest, Miss Sarah?" "Of course. Marina is the happiest and most secure child I've ever met, and that's not despite the difficulties you all faced. It's because of how you've handled them," Alex said seriously. "My mom died when I was 12. My dad had a lot of money, but he didn't know how to give me the emotional security that you provide for Marina." Sarah looked at Eduardo, who was clearly moved by his son's words. "Alex is right," Eduardo said. "Marina is special because you are an exceptional mother." They reached the car, and Eduardo offered to give Sarah a ride to the school where she worked. "You don't have to. I can take the bus," she said. "I insist. Alex and I don't have anything planned. Nothing to do for the next 2 hours." During the ride, Alex insisted on sitting in the back so that Sarah could sit in the front. He asked intelligent questions about her work, showing genuine curiosity about the challenges of public education. "It must be frustrating at times," Alex commented, "wanting to give the best to the students but not having adequate resources." "It is," Sarah admitted, "but it's also rewarding when you see a student develop despite the limitations. Every small victory is worth it." David watched the conversation in the rearview mirror, impressed by the emotional maturity Alex was displaying. The boy had clearly inherited the intelligence of both parents, but had also developed a special sensitivity after his own losses. When they stopped in front of the school where Sarah worked, Alex got out of the car to open the door for her. "It was a pleasure meeting you, Miss Johnson, and thank you for making my dad smile again." Sarah looked visibly moved. "The pleasure was mine, Alex. You're a very special young man." "I inherited it from my dad," Alex said, winking at David, "even when he doesn't realize it." After Sarah entered the school, David and Alex sat in silence in the car for a few minutes. "So," David finally asked, "what did you think?" "I think you're in love with her," Alex said directly. "And I think she likes you too, but she's scared." "Why do you think she's scared?" "Because she's proud and independent, and accepting help from someone like you means giving up some control over her own life," Alex analyzed. "Besides, she probably thinks you're feeling sorry for her because of the illness." David sighed. "And what do you think I should do?" "Prove to her that you're not doing it out of pity, but because you genuinely care," Alex said, "and give her time to trust you." "And what about Lily?" Alex smiled. "Lily has already adopted us. She's smarter than all of us combined." They laughed, and David felt a lightness he hadn't experienced in years. Having Alex back not only completed his personal life, but also gave him a partner to navigate the complex situation with Sarah and Lily. "Alex, there's one more thing," David said. "Sarah is sick, lupus. The treatment is expensive and complicated." Alex became serious. "Is that why you want to help?" "Partly, but also because—" David paused, searching for the right words. "Because when I'm with them, I feel like I can be a better version of myself." "Then let's make this work," Alex said determinedly. "Both of us, like a real family." David smiled, feeling that he was finally on the right path. For the first time in years, he had not only a reason to fight, but also a partner by his side. "Like a real family," he agreed, extending his hand to Alex. When they shook hands, both knew they were sealing more than an agreement. They were rebuilding a relationship that pain had destroyed and creating space for others who could become important in their lives. The first step had been taken. Now it was a matter of patience, persistence, and a lot of love to earn the trust of two women who had learned to survive on their own, but might be ready to accept help and love. In their lives, 2 weeks had passed since Lily's first day at the new school, and a delicate routine had been established. David and Alex took turns picking Lily up after school, always waiting for Sarah to arrive from work to return the girl. These were brief meetings, but they gradually created a cautious intimacy between the two families. On that Thursday in February, the heat was unbearable in Chicago. David had arrived earlier than planned to pick up Lily and found her sitting alone in the shade of the schoolyard with a worried expression that contrasted with her usual joy. "Hi, little one," he said, approaching her. "Why the sad face?" Lily looked around to make sure no one was listening, then whispered, "David, can I tell you a secret?" David's heart tightened. The last 2 times Lily had shared secrets with him, her life had changed completely. "Of course you can," he said, sitting down next to her on the bench. "Mommy is lying to me," Lily said, her words coming out in a whisper filled with sadness. "She said she would get better with the new medicine, but last night I heard her talking to Grandma Alice." David felt a chill in his stomach. "What did you hear?" "She was crying and saying that the doctor said she needs a very expensive surgery, and that without the surgery she might go away forever." Lily's voice broke. "Just like the dad I never knew." David closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the child's pain as if it were his own. Sarah had hidden the real gravity of her situation, probably to protect Lily and to maintain her independence regarding the help he offered. "Grandma Alice got very angry with the doctors," Lily continued. "She said words that she never lets me say, and then she hugged Mommy and said everything would be okay." "Lily, does your mom know you heard that conversation?" Lily shook her head. "I pretended to be asleep, but I couldn't sleep all night." "David, can you really help my mom? Not just with school, but with her illness too?" David held Lily's cold little hands. "I can try, but for that I need your mom to trust me completely. And sometimes it's hard for adults to ask for help." "Why?" "Because adults are afraid of owing favors to others." David explained as simply as he could. "Your mom is very proud and strong. She doesn't want anyone to think she can't take care of herself." "By yourself," Lily thought for a moment. "But we're family now, right? In a family, we help each other." The simplicity of Lily's logic once again cut through all the adult complexities. David smiled sadly. "That's true, little one. In a family, we help each other." "So, are you going to talk to her?" "I will. But maybe you can help me too." "How?" "Just keep being the amazing girl you are, and when your mom is sad, remind her how much you love her, okay?" Lily nodded seriously, as if she had received an important mission. At that moment, Sarah appeared at the school gate, waving to them. David immediately noticed that she looked paler than usual and moved with excessive caution, as if each step cost her energy. "Hi, Mom!" shouted Lily, running to hug her with extra strength. "Hi, my daughter," Sarah replied, returning the hug. "How was school today?" "Great! The art teacher taught us how to paint with watercolors, and David came early and we talked about family secrets." David saw Sarah tense slightly at the mention of secrets. "What kind of secrets?" she asked, trying to keep her voice casual. "Secrets about how families help each other," Lily said innocently. Sarah looked at David with a mix of gratitude and apprehension. "David, can I talk to you for a minute? Lily, can you play on the slide while I talk to him?" Lily ran off, and Sarah approached David. He noticed that she had deep, dark circles under her eyes, and her hands trembled slightly. "David, I need to be direct with you," she said, her voice low, but firm. "I know you have good intentions, but I can't let Lily get used to the idea that you will solve all our problems." "Why not?" "Because you won't be here forever," she said, looking directly into his eyes. "And when you get tired of playing the savior, Lily will suffer. She has already lost a father. I can't let her get attached to someone else who might disappear." David felt her words hit him like a slap. "Sarah, what makes you think I'm going to disappear?" "Experience," she said bitterly. Men like you don't stick around when things get really tough, and things are going to get tough, David, very tough. What did the doctors say? He asked directly. Sarah paled even more. What do you mean? Lily heard you talking to Grandma Alice last night about surgery. Sarah closed her eyes and sighed deeply. Damn, I thought she was sleeping. Sarah, talk to me. What's the real situation? She looked at Lily, who was playing on the slide, oblivious to the adults' conversation, then turned her eyes back to David. The lupus is attacking my kidneys. I need surgery to prevent it from progressing to complete renal failure, she said, her voice controlled but filled with fear. The surgery costs $200,000. The public health system has a 2-year waiting list. If I wait, it might be too late. David felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. $200,000 was a significant amount even for him, but mainly it was a race against time that Sarah was losing. And you weren't going to tell me this? Why? So you feel obligated to pay another one of my bills, she said, her voice rising. I already owe you too much, David. Lily's school, the books, the uniforms. You don't owe me anything, David interrupted. This was all my choice. Exactly, your choice, and choices can change. Sarah exploded, then quickly glanced at Lily to make sure she hadn't heard. David, I can't build my life, and my daughter's life, on someone else's choices, especially someone I met 3 weeks ago. David took a deep breath, trying to control his own frustration. Sarah was right to be cautious, but her stubbornness was putting her life at risk. Sarah, look at me, he said, gently holding her arm. I understand your fear. I understand your pride, but Lily needs her mother alive, and you need this treatment. Not with your money, she said, pulling away from his touch. With whose money, then? Sarah, you earn $3,000 a month. Even if you saved every penny, it would take over 5 years to save that amount. Do you have 5 years? The practical cruelty of the question made Sarah stagger slightly. David immediately regretted how he had spoken. I'm sorry, he said quickly. I didn't mean to be so direct. No, Sarah said, straightening her shoulders. You're right. I don't have 5 years, not even 2. The doctors think I have between 6 months and a year before my kidneys completely fail. The silence that followed was heavy. David looked at Lily, who was laughing as she slid down the slide, completely unaware that she was racing against time to not lose her mother. Sarah, David finally said, what your daughter needs is not a proud dead mother. She needs a living mother, even if that means accepting help. The words hit Sarah like a sharp arrow. She fought against the tears that threatened to spill over. It's easy to say that when you've never had to depend on the kindness of strangers to survive, she said, her voice choked. You're right, David admitted. I've never been through that. But I've also never offered help, expecting something in return. And I've never cared about someone the way I care about both of you. Sarah stared at him for a long moment. David, you don't even know me well. How can you care about me? Because in the last 3 weeks, you've become the most important person in my life, he said, surprised by his own honesty. You and Lily and Alex has also become attached to you in a way I haven't seen since before the death of... He is his mother. That's even more reason for me to be careful, Sarah said softly. If something goes wrong between us, it's not just my heart that will break. It's Lily's too, and Alex's. David moved closer to her again, this time more slowly. Sarah, look into my eyes and tell me if you think I will abandon you. She stared at him for a long time, studying his expression, searching for signs of deceit or hesitation. What she saw was determination, mixed with fear. Fear of losing her just like he had lost Lily. I want to believe you, she finally whispered, but I'm so scared. Scared of what? Of getting used to you, of Lily getting used to you, of building a life that depends on you and then finding out it was all an illusion, she admitted. And I'm also scared of dying and leaving Lily alone. If she gets too attached to you and something happens to me, will you continue to take care of her? Or will you hand her over to some distant relative and move on with your life? The question hit David at the core of his worst fears. What would he do if Sarah died? Would he be able to fully take on Lily? Or would he run away from the responsibility like he had run from his own son after Lily's death? I don't know, he said honestly. I hope I never have to find out, but I can promise you one thing. I will do everything in my power to make sure you don't die. And if the worst happens, Lily will never be alone. Sarah studied his face for another moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, she said softly. I'll let you help me, but with one condition. What? I want a legal contract. I don't want this to be based solely on goodwill. I want guarantees that Lily will be protected no matter what happens. David smiled for the first time since the beginning of the conversation. Done. My lawyer will prepare everything. At that moment, Lily ran back to them. Did you finish talking about family secrets? We did, said Sarah, hugging her daughter. And you know what? David is going to help us even more than he already was. I knew it, exclaimed Lily. He promised he would take care of us. David knelt down to Lily's height. And I always keep my promises, little one. Always. Lily hugged him tightly, and David felt the weight of the responsibility he was taking on, not just financially, but emotionally. He was becoming a father to a child who was not biologically his, a partner to a woman he barely knew, all while trying to rebuild his relationship with his own son. But for the first time in 3 years, all those fears seemed smaller than his determination, not to let anyone he loved suffer alone anymore. Sarah was right to be cautious, but this time he wouldn't run away when things got tough. This time he would stay and fight. March brought with it a routine that none of those involved had planned, but that seemed to flow naturally. David had managed to schedule Sarah's surgery for the end of the month with Dr. Ryan, one of the best nephrologists in New York, at Mount Sinai Hospital. Meanwhile, Alex had become a constant presence in Lily's life, picking her up from school 3 times a week and helping her with her homework. That Saturday morning, David woke up to the sound of laughter coming from the kitchen. It was a sound that hadn't echoed through his apartment in a long time, genuine, spontaneous joy. When he went downstairs to investigate, he found Alex and Lily making pancakes with the kitchen counter covered in flour and Lily wearing an apron that was clearly too big for her. "Good morning, sleepyhead," greeted Alex, smiling. "Lily is teaching me Grandma Alice's secret recipe." "It's not a secret," protested Lily, all covered in flour. "Grandma just said it's special because it has cinnamon and love." David smiled, watching the intimacy that had developed between the two. Alex treated Lily with a mix of brotherly affection and paternal protection that deeply moved him. "And where's the recipe for love?" David asked, joining in the fun. "Oh, that's easy," said Lily, serious. "You put it in thinking about who will eat it. Grandma said food made with love always tastes better." "Very wise, your grandma," David agreed, ruffling the girl's hair. David's phone rang. It was Ryan, his assistant. "David, sorry to call on a Saturday, but we have a situation. The construction company that was responsible for the city hospital project in West Village went bankrupt. The contract was being renegotiated with the city, and our company has been invited to take over the project." David hesitated. The construction of a public hospital would be complex, with low profit margins and a lot of bureaucracy. Normally, he would decline. "What kind of hospital is it?" he asked, an idea beginning to form. a specialized center for nephrology and transplants. It would be one of the most modern in North America when completed. David looked at Lily, who was trying to flip a pancake by herself under Alex's careful supervision. An opportunity was presenting itself in a way that felt more than coincidental. "Ryan, accept the contract, and I want you to start on Monday. This project has top priority." "David, can I ask why the sudden interest in public hospitals?" "Let's just say it's a personal investment," David replied, hanging up the phone. Alex looked at him curiously. "Dad, what was that?" "Maybe a way to help more people like your mom," David said, turning to Lily. "Little one, how about we invite your mom and Grandma Alice over for lunch? Today, Alex made enough pancakes for an army." Lily clapped her hands, excited. "Can I call them?" An hour later, Sarah and Grandma Alice arrived at David's apartment. Alice looked around with that investigative gaze that missed no detail. The expensive furniture, the artwork on the walls, the panoramic view of the city through the windows of the 22nd floor. "My goodness," she murmured softly. "This place is bigger than our entire street." Sarah was paler than usual, but she was trying hard to hide her discomfort. David noticed that she was moving with extra care and that her hands were trembling slightly. "How are you feeling today?" he asked, kissing Sarah's cheek in a greeting that had become natural in recent weeks. "Better," Sarah lied, forcing a smile. Grandma Alice studied her with worried eyes. "Liar. You barely slept last night." "Grandma Alice," Sarah began, embarrassed. "No use with Grandma Alice now," interrupted the typical Midwestern woman. "Since yesterday you've been complaining about back pain and making a face. Do you think I don't see?" David leaned in, concerned. "Sarah, what's going on?" "It's just some aches," she said evasively. "Normal for the condition." Grandma Alice scoffed. "Normal. My foot. David, this stubborn girl is hiding that the pain has gotten much worse in the last few days, and that she felt unwell at school yesterday." "Grandma!" Sarah exclaimed, clearly embarrassed. "Sarah," David said firmly, "we agreed there would be no more secrets." Lily, who was playing with Alex in the living room, approached upon hearing the serious tone of the conversation. "Mom, are you sick again?" she asked, worried. Sarah knelt to her daughter's level, trying to reassure her. "I'm fine, sweetheart, it's just a little pain." "But you made that face you make when you're trying to be strong," Lily insisted, "just like when you cry in the shower and pretend it's because of the shampoo." The silence that followed was heavy. Lily's insight had once again exposed what the adults were trying to hide. "Lily," Alex said gently, "how about we show Grandma the video game in my room while your dad talks to your mom?" Grandma Alice understood the hint. "Good idea, my grandson. Lily, come show Grandma those modern games." After they left, David sat next to Sarah on the couch. "Talk to me. What's really going on?" Sarah took a deep breath. "The pain is worse. And yesterday during class, I had a really strong dizziness. I almost fainted in front of the students." "And you didn't think it was important to tell me this?" "David, the surgery is already scheduled for 3 weeks from now. There's no point in panicking now," she said, trying to appear calm. "We're calling Dr. Johnson right now," David said, already reaching for the phone. "It's Saturday, David. And besides..." "Besides what?" Sarah hesitated. "Besides, I'm scared." The admission came out as a whisper. David put down the phone and turned completely to her. "Scared of what?" "Of everything. The surgery. Not waking up, leaving Lily orphaned," she said, tears finally escaping. "And I'm also scared of you." "Of me?" "Of getting used to this," she said, gesturing to the luxurious apartment. "Of getting used to you taking care of me, protecting Lily, being this strong presence in our lives. And then finding out it's not real." David took her hands, noticing they were cold and trembling. "Sarah, look at me." This is real. I am real, and I'm not going anywhere." "How can you be sure?" she asked, vulnerable. "Because in the last 5 weeks, you and Lily have become the reason I wake up in the morning," he said, surprised by his own honesty. "Before I met you, I was on autopilot. I worked, made money, but had no real purpose. You gave me back the desire to build something that matters." Sarah studied him for a long moment. "David, can I ask you a very direct question?" "Of course." "If I die during the surgery, will you take care of Lily? For real, not just financially. Will you be present, help with homework, take her to the doctor when she gets sick, teach her how to ride a bike?" The question hit David at the core of his deepest fears. Taking care of Alex after Lily's death had been a challenge he hadn't known how to face. How could he promise to be better with Lily? "I'll try," he said honestly. "I don't know if I'll be perfect because I failed with Alex after Lily died, but I promise I'll try to be the dad Lily deserves." "And if you can't?" David thought of Alex, who had become a dedicated older brother to Lily. He thought of Grandma Alice, who protected the family. With the ferocity of a lioness, he thought of himself and how his life had gained color and meaning since he met this family. "If I can't, I'll seek help. Therapy, support, whatever it takes. But Lily will never be alone," he promised. "And you won't die during the surgery." "How can you be sure?" "Because you're too strong, and because too many people are counting on you," David said, kissing her forehead gently. "And because I'm not going to let that happen." At that moment, they heard laughter coming from Alex's room. Lily was teaching Grandma Alice how to play video games, and from the joyful screams of the lady, she was having a great time. "Listen to that," David said, smiling. "Your daughter managed to make a 60-year-old typical Midwestern woman enjoy video games. If she can work miracles like that, imagine what else is possible." Sarah smiled for the first time since she arrived. Lily has always had that gift. She sees the best in people and somehow makes them see themselves through her eyes. "Just like her mother," David said softly. They sat in silence for a few minutes, listening to the sounds of joy. Incoming from the room, it was a moment of peace amidst the storm their lives had become. "David," Sarah finally said, "can I make one more request?" "Anything." "If something goes wrong with me, promise you won't let Grandma Alice be alone. She has raised 2 generations of women her whole life. She couldn't bear to be without any of us." David felt something tighten in his chest. "Sarah, stop talking like you're going to die. You're going to be fine." "Promise?" she insisted. "I promise. Grandma Alice will always have a place in our family." "Our family," Sarah repeated, softly, as if testing how the words sounded. "Our family," confirmed David. "A bit crazy, a bit improvised, but ours." Lily came running into the room at that moment, followed by Alex and Grandma Alice. "Mom, Grandma won at the video game. She's really good," announced Lily excitedly. "That's great, sweetheart," said Sarah, discreetly wiping away the traces of tears. Grandma Alice observed her daughter with knowing eyes. "Sarah, you cried." "They were good tears, Grandma Alice," David reassured. "We were talking about family." Grandma studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right then, but enough serious talk. Lily said you were going to make lunch for us. I want to see if a wealthy man really knows how to cook or just knows how to order expensive food." Alex laughed. "Grandma Alice, get ready to be surprised. Dad makes the best shrimp risotto in New York." "Risotto?" Grandma Alice asked suspiciously. "What the heck is risotto?" Lily took her grandmother's hand. "Grandma, it's special rice. You'll like it. And if you don't, we can order pizza." As they headed to the kitchen, David held Sarah's hand for a moment. "We're going to be okay," he whispered. "All of us." Sarah squeezed his hand in response, allowing herself to believe, for the first time in weeks, that maybe he was right. Maybe it was really possible to build something lasting and real amidst so much fear and uncertainty. After all, they had already created an unlikely family in just 5 weeks. Perhaps miracles really did exist. The morning of March 28th arrived with a grey sky that seemed to reflect the mood of everyone in the makeshift family that David, Sarah, Lily, and Grandma Alice had formed. Mount Sinai Hospital was busy, as always, but for the small group heading to the reception, the world seemed to have stopped. Sarah walked between David and Grandma Alice, Lily firmly holding her right hand, while Alex carried a small bag with belongings for the hospital stay. The surgery was scheduled for 10 in the morning, and everyone had arrived 2 hours early for preparations. "Mom, why are you squeezing my hand so tight?" Lily asked, looking at Sarah with her big, worried eyes. "Sorry, sweetheart," Sarah said, relaxing her grip. "Mummy's a little nervous." "Is it because of the surgery?" Lily asked with that direct honesty of children. "Are you scared?" David saw Sarah hesitate, struggling between the desire to protect their daughter from the truth and the need to be honest. "I am a little scared," she finally admitted, "but Dr. Roberts is very good, and I will be fine." "I know you will," Lily said with absolute conviction, "because you are the strongest mom in the world, and because David promised he would take care of us." Grandma Alice discreetly wiped away a tear. At 62, she had raised Sarah alone after being abandoned by the girl's father, and now she saw her granddaughter facing the possibility of losing her mother. Lily's strength impressed her, but it also worried her. "Lily," Grandma Alice said, stopping and bending down to her granddaughter's level. "Come here, my little one. Grandma wants to tell you something." Lily approached, and Grandma held her delicate shoulders. "My granddaughter, you know that no matter what happens today, you will never be alone, right?" "I know, Grandma. I have you and David and Alex," Lily said, counting on her fingers. "And Mommy will get better and come home tonight." Lily's unwavering confidence made David feel the weight of the responsibility he had taken on. What if something went wrong? What if he couldn't be the father Lily needed? The doubts that had haunted his relationship with Alex after Helena's death returned with full force. Alex, sensing his father's tension, stepped closer and whispered, "Dad, everything will be all right. And if it's not, we will face it together." Alex's maturity at 15 once again surprised David. The boy had grown a lot in the past few weeks, taking on a protective older brother role that filled him with pride and gratitude. At the reception, Dr. Roberts was waiting for them. He was a 50-year-old man with grey hair, glasses, and a serious yet gentle expression. David had researched extensively before choosing him. The doctor was considered one of the best nephrologists in the country, with impressive success rates. "Good morning, Sarah," the doctor greeted. "How are you feeling?" "Nervous," she admitted, "but ready." "It's normal to be nervous. It's a complex surgery, but we have all the necessary resources to ensure everything goes well," Dr. Roberts explained, then turned to the family. "Are you her support system?" "We are," David replied. "What can we expect in terms of recovery?" "If everything goes as planned, Sarah will be hospitalized for 5 days. After that, a period of rest at home for 3 weeks, with regular follow-up appointments," the doctor explained. "It is essential that she has full support during recovery." "She will," Grandma Alice assured firmly. "David and I will take turns caring for her." Dr. Roberts smiled upon hearing the determination in the voice of the typical Midwestern woman. "Excellent. Family support is crucial for a good recovery." Lily tugged at the doctor's coat. "Doctor, do you promise to take good care of my mom?" Dr. Roberts bent down to be at the girl's level. "I promise, little one. I will take care of her as if she were my own daughter." "And you really are a very good doctor," Lily insisted. "Lily!" Sarah scolded, embarrassed. But Dr. Roberts laughed. "She has the right to ask. Yes, Lily, I am a very good doctor, and your mom is in excellent hands." Lily studied the doctor's face for a moment, then nodded gravely. "Okay, I believe you." Half an hour later, it was time to say goodbye. Sarah would be taken for pre-surgical preparations, and the family would wait in the waiting room during the 4 hours expected for the procedure. "Mom," said Lily, hugging Sarah tightly, "don't forget that I love you very, very much." "I love you too, my daughter, more than anything in the world," replied Sarah, fighting back tears. Grandma Alice embraced her daughter for a long time. "Go with God, my girl, and come back to us soon." "Take care of Lily for me," whispered Sarah. "I've always taken care of her, and I always will," promised Grandma Alice. Alex approached shyly. In recent weeks, Sarah had become a mother figure to him, filling a void that had existed since Helena's death. "Aunt Sarah," he said, using the affectionate nickname he had created, "you'll be okay. And when you come back, I'll make that chocolate cake you love." Sarah hugged him emotionally. "Thank you for taking such good care of Lily, Alex. You're a wonderful brother to her." David was the last to say goodbye. When they were alone for a moment, Sarah held his hands. "David, if something goes wrong—" "It won't," he interrupted firmly. "But if it does," she insisted, "promise me you'll love Lily as if she were your own daughter." "She already is my daughter," David said, gently kissing her forehead. "And you are. You are too important to me, Sarah. I can't lose you now that I've finally found a reason to live again." "David, I love you," he said, surprised that he finally had the courage to say the words he had felt for weeks. "I know it's too soon. I know the situation is complicated, but I love you, and I love Lily, and I want you both to be a part of my life forever." Sarah felt tears overflow. "I love you too, and that scares me a lot." "Why?" "Because now I have even more reasons to want to live," she said, smiling through her tears, "and that makes everything riskier." "Then don't take unnecessary risks in there," David said, trying to keep the tone light. "Come back to us soon." "I will come back," she promised. "I have a family to take care of now." After Sarah was taken for preparation, the four settled into the waiting room. It was a comfortable area, with soft chairs, updated magazines, and a coffee machine, but nothing could ease the tension that hung in the air. Lily sat on David's lap, resting her head on his shoulder. "David, how long does surgery take?" "A few hours, little one, but it will go by quickly. And will Mommy feel pain?" "Not during the surgery, she'll be asleep, and afterward the doctors will give her medicine so she won't feel pain," David explained patiently. Alex sat next to them with a book, but David noticed he wasn't able to concentrate on reading. The boy kept glancing at the clock and the door through which Sarah had disappeared. Grandma Alice paced back and forth, quietly praying a prayer that David couldn't fully understand, but whose tone of supplication was universal. She held a rosary in her hands and occasionally made the sign of the cross. "Grandma Alice, come sit with us," called Lily. "Walking around like that won't make Mommy get better faster." Grandma Alice smiled through her worry. "You're right, my granddaughter." She sat down next to David. "David, can I ask you a question?" "Of course, Grandma Alice." "Do you really love my daughter, or do you just feel sorry for her?" Grandma Alice's direct question caught David off guard, but he appreciated the woman's brutal honesty. "I love her," he replied without hesitation. "And Lily too. You both have changed my life completely." Grandma Alice studied him for a long moment. "And if Sarah dies, will you continue to take care of Lily, or will you hand her over to some relative and disappear?" David looked at Lily, who was pretending to sleep in his lap, but he knew she was listening to every word. "Grandma Alice, Lily is my daughter now. Whether Sarah lives or dies, that won't change," he said, stroking the girl's hair. "And you are also part of our family. Our family, murmured Grandma Alice, as if testing the words. I never thought I would have such a big family at 62. Alex looked up from the book. Grandma Alice, can I call you Grandma too? I never had a grandmother present in my life. Grandma Alice felt her eyes fill with tears. Of course you can, my grandson. Now we are all one family. Lily shifted in David's lap and murmured, I told you it was simple. Family is who you love and take care of. The next 4 hours passed in a mix of anxiety, quiet conversations, and periods of tense silence. David called the office 3 times, cancelling important meetings. Alex tried to make Lily laugh with stories and games. Grandma Alice prayed tirelessly. At 2:30 in the afternoon, Dr. Roberts appeared in the waiting room, still wearing surgical scrubs. His expression was serious, but not grim. The surgery was a success, he announced, and David felt as if he could breathe again for the first time in hours. We were able to repair the damage to the kidneys, and the functions are normalizing. Sarah is in recovery and should wake up in a few hours. Lily jumped off David's lap. Can I see her? Not yet, little one. But in a few hours, when she's more awake, you can visit her, the doctor explained kindly. Grandma Alice stood up and, to everyone's surprise, hugged Dr. Roberts. Thank you, doctor. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to take care of her, said the doctor. You have a very special family. David felt a wave of relief so intense that his legs weakened. Alex noticed and held his arm. She made it, Dad. She's really strong. Yes, she is, agreed David, hugging his son. Our family is full of strong women. Lily danced with joy in the waiting room, humming, Mommy is better, Mommy is better. Her behavior caught the attention of other families in the room, who smiled at the girl's genuine joy. David realized that this was the first time in weeks when Lily acted like a normal 7-year-old without adult worries weighing on her small shoulders. David, said Grandma Alice, approaching him, thank you for everything, for saving my daughter, for accepting our crazy family, for giving hope to Lily. Grandma Alice, the ones who saved me were you all, David replied sincerely. I was lost until I met you. Alice smiled and lightly tapped his arm. Stop talking nonsense, boy. Now let's wait for our Sarah to wake up so we can take her home. To our home, corrected Lily, hanging onto David's leg, because now we are a real family. David looked around the waiting room, Alex reading quietly, Alice organizing the bag with things for Sarah, Lily drawing on a piece of paper what she called our big family, and realized that Lily was right. They were indeed a real family. Not in the traditional way, not how he had planned, but real and solid in a way he had never experienced before. And for the first time in years, David Smith felt truly at home. 2 weeks after the surgery, the house that David had bought in the West Village was finally inhabited by a true family. It was a spacious yet cozy single-story house, with a garden in the back where Lily could play and Alice could plant her herbs. Sarah was recovering in the master bedroom, surrounded by care and attention that made her feel simultaneously grateful and embarrassed. That April morning, David woke up early and went downstairs to find Alice already in the kitchen, preparing a chicken broth that she swore had miraculous healing properties. The homey smell filled the house, mixing with the low sound of the television and the footsteps of Alex, who was getting ready for school. "Good morning, mother-in-law," said David, using the affectionate term he had naturally adopted. Alice smiled. At 62, she never imagined she would be called mother-in-law by a millionaire businessman, much less that she would feel so comfortable with the situation. "Good morning, my son-in-law. Sarah had a good night. She slept almost 8 hours straight," she reported, stirring the broth. "Lily woke up twice to check if her mum was breathing, but we managed to get her back to her own room." David sighed. Lily had developed understandable anxiety after her mum's surgery, constantly checking if Sarah was okay. It was normal behavior for a child who had faced the real possibility of losing her mother, but it worried all the adults. "How is Sarah this morning?" David asked, pouring coffee for himself. "Better. The pain has decreased a lot, and she's able to move more easily," Alice replied. "But still stubborn. Yesterday she tried to get up by herself to go to the bathroom. And almost fell," David chuckled softly. "Excessive independence is a family trait, from what I can tell." "She inherited it from me," Alice admitted proudly. "I always taught her not to depend on anyone. Now I have to teach the opposite, that sometimes it's okay to accept help." Alex came down the stairs, dressed in his uniform and carrying his backpack. At 15, the boy had matured significantly in the past few weeks, taking on household responsibilities and becoming a dedicated older brother to Lily. "Good morning, family," he greeted, kissing Alice on the forehead and patting his dad's shoulder. "How is Aunt Sarah today?" "Better," David replied. "Do you want to check on her before you leave for school?" "Sure, and I'll say goodbye to Lily too." Alex quietly ascended the stairs. Sarah's room had the door slightly ajar, allowing David and Alice to monitor her during the night. She was awake, reading a book propped up on pillows, with Lily curled up beside her like a kitten. "Good morning, Aunt Sarah," Alex whispered. "How do you feel?" "Much better, thank you," Sarah replied softly, so as not to wake Lily. "Are you going to school?" "I am." "Can I pick up Lily when her class is over?" "Of course, but Alex—" Sarah hesitated. "Thank you for taking such good care of her, and of me too." Alex blushed slightly. "You don't need to thank me, we're family." The naturalness with which Alex spoke about family touched Sarah deeply. The boy had lost his mother at 12 and had emotionally distanced himself from his father. Now, at 15, he was rebuilding not only his relationship with David, but also creating new bonds with her, Lily, and Alice. "Alex," Sarah said impulsively, "can I ask you a question?" "Sure. How do you feel about all of this? About your dad getting involved with our family? Don't you get jealous of sharing his attention?" Alex thought for a moment before answering. "At first, I was afraid it would be like the situation with my mum. That Dad would pull away when things got tough, but now I see that he has learned from his mistakes." "And what about Lily? Isn't it strange to suddenly have a 7-year-old little sister?" Alex smiled, looking at Lily sleeping. "It's the best thing that has happened to me in years. She reminded me how good it is to have a real family, and gave me a purpose to protect her and take care of her." Sarah felt her eyes welling up with tears. "Alex, you know you can talk to me about anything, right? About your mum, about your feelings, about what's going on at school." "I know," said Alex, moving closer to the bed. "And you know you can count on me too, right? If you need anything, if you're scared, if you want to talk about what you're feeling." Their exchange of affection was interrupted by Lily stirring and slowly opening her eyes. "Alex," she murmured, still sleepy, "are you going to school?" "I am, little one, but I'll be back soon to have lunch with you all." Lily sat up in bed, her hair messy and still in her pajamas. "Alex, can I go with you today? I miss my school." Sarah and Alex exchanged looks. Lily had missed 2 weeks of school to stay close to her mom during recovery, despite everyone protesting that she should maintain her normal routine. "Lily, you need to go to your own school," Sarah said gently, "and I'm feeling much better. You don't need to watch over me all the time. But what if you get sick while I'm not here? Grandma Alice is here, and David only goes to the office after lunch," Sarah reassured her. "Besides, you're missing a lot of content at school." Lily made a face. "Okay, but you promise you won't get out of bed until I come back?" "I promise. And you promise you'll pay attention in class and make friends with your classmates. I promise. Alex kissed both of their foreheads. See you later, girls. Behave. After Alex left, Sarah watched Lily get up and start arranging the pillows around her, a gesture of care that was touching but concerning for a 7-year-old. Lily, come here, Sarah said, pulling her daughter close. We need to talk about something important. About what? About you taking care of me too much. My daughter, I'm the mom. My job is to take care of you, not the other way around. Lily lowered her head. But I'm scared you'll get sick again if I don't take care of you. Sweetheart, I'm not going to get sick again because you're taking care of me. I'm going to be fine. Because I had the surgery and I'm taking the right medicine, Sarah explained patiently. Your job is to be a kid, to play, study, and make friends. But what if... Lily, Sarah gently interrupted. Do you trust me? Of course I do. Then trust me when I say I'm okay, and that you can go back to being a normal 7-year-old, all right? Lily nodded, but Sarah noticed there was still anxiety in her eyes. It was understandable. The girl had spent months watching her mother wither away, then face the terror of a surgery that could have resulted in death. Regaining trust would take time. An hour later, David entered the room, carrying a tray with breakfast for Sarah. Room service, he announced, smiling. Courtesy of the West Village Hotel. Sarah laughed. David, you don't have to do this. I can go downstairs to have breakfast with everyone. You can, but you don't have to, he replied, adjusting the tray over her legs. Let us take care of you for a few more days. David sat on the edge of the bed, watching Sarah eat. She looked visibly better. The color had returned to her face. Her eyes no longer had those dark circles of pain, and she moved naturally. David, she said after a few minutes, can I ask you something? Of course. Isn't it too hard for you? Taking care of 3 women, one of whom is sick, another is an anxious child, and the third is a typical Midwestern mother-in-law who has an opinion about everything? David laughed loudly. Sarah, you just described the best phase of my life. Seriously. Seriously. For the first time in years, I wake up in the morning knowing exactly why I'm alive, he said, taking her hand. You all have given me purpose, direction, joy, and Alex has also flourished with your presence. Sarah studied him for a moment. And you're not afraid? Of commitment? Of responsibility? I am, David admitted. Mostly afraid of failing you like I failed Alex when Helena died. But the fear no longer paralyzes me. David, Sarah said, squeezing his hand, you didn't fail Alex. You both were suffering and didn't know how to help each other. That's not failure, that's being human. Maybe, but this time I want to do it differently. I want to be present, participate, build good memories, David said. And I want to do that with you by my side. Sarah felt her heart race. David, I know it's still early, I know you're recovering, but I need to say this, he interrupted. I want you to marry me, for real, not out of convenience or because of Lily, because I love you and want to build a life with you. The words hung in the air between them. Sarah looked at him, seeing sincerity and vulnerability in his eyes. David, I love you too. More than I thought it was possible to love someone again, she said softly. But I'm scared. Scared of what? Of everything. Of not being good enough for your life. Of Lily feeling pressured to see us as the perfect family. Of Grandma Alice not adapting to the change, Sarah explained. And mostly of you finding out that we're more complicated than we seem. David smiled. Sarah, in the last 2 months, I've taken care of an anxious child, dealt with a mother-in-law who constantly tests me, managed an emergency surgery, and rebuilt my relationship with my teenage son. If that's not complicated, I don't know what is. And you still want more? I want it all. I want to wake up with you every day. I want to help Lily with her homework. I want to argue with Grandma Alice about spices in food. I want to grow old next to people who truly love me, David said with conviction. The question is, do you want that too? Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, thinking about everything that had happened. 2 months ago, she was a single teacher battling a progressive illness, hiding the fear of leaving her daughter orphaned. Now, she was in a comfortable home, recovering from a successful surgery, surrounded by a family that loved her. I want to, she whispered. I want it very much. David leaned in and kissed her softly. It was a kiss full of promises, hope, and futures they would build together. Then let's get married, he said, smiling against her lips. When? Whenever you want. Tomorrow, next month, next year. It doesn't matter when, as long as it happens. Sarah laughed, feeling lighter than she had in months. How about at the end of the year? Give me time to fully recover and for us to plan properly? Perfect, David agreed. And we will throw a party that Lily will remember forever. And Alex? How do you think he will react? Alex has already asked me 3 times when I will make our situation official, David said, laughing. I think he will be relieved. At that moment, they heard footsteps on the stairs, followed by Grandma Alice's voice. David, there's a man here who wants to talk to you. David frowned. I wasn't expecting anyone. He went down the stairs and found Grandma Alice at the front door, blocking the entrance of a man in a suit who clearly seemed uncomfortable with the hostile reception from the typical Midwestern woman. David Smith? The man asked. I am Dr. Roberts from the City Hospital. I need to speak with you about the construction project for the nephrology center. David stepped closer, curious. Of course, Doctor, please come in. Grandma Alice let him pass, but continued to watch suspiciously as they headed to the living room. Mr. Smith, the construction is progressing exceptionally well. We are 3 weeks ahead of the original schedule, Dr. Roberts reported. But an opportunity has arisen that we would like to discuss with you. What kind of opportunity? The Department of Health has approved additional funding for us to create not just a nephrology center, but a model hospital for the entire country. With your expertise and the exceptional work you have done, we would like to propose an extension of the contract. David processed the information. The construction of the hospital had become a personal project for him, a way to ensure that other families like Sarah's had access to quality treatment. What would the scope of this extension be? To triple the size of the project, instead of a specialized center, a full hospital with 500 beds, a state-of-the-art surgical center, a transplant unit, and a medical residency program, Dr. Roberts explained excitedly. It would be revolutionary for public health in New York. David thought about the implications. It would be a project of at least 3 years, involving most of his company's resources, but with immense social impact. Dr. Roberts, can I give you an answer next week? It's a significant project, and I need to discuss it with my team. Of course, Mr. Smith. But I can assure you that your company would be the department's first choice, especially considering the quality of your current work. After the doctor left, David remained thoughtful in the living room. Grandma Alice approached, carrying 2 cups of coffee. This project has to do with Sarah's illness, right? She asked directly. David smiled. Grandma Alice always got straight to the point. It does, Grandma Alice, and with others who are going through the same situation we faced. Then accept it, she said simply. We can make money. Opportunities to save lives don't come every day. It could be financially risky for the company. Grandma Alice looked at him with that firm gaze she used when she wouldn't accept discussion. David, you have enough money to buy this house, pay for Sarah's surgery, support our family comfortably, and still have some left over. What more do you need? The simplicity of Grandma Alice's logic made him smile. She was right. He had spent years accumulating wealth without a clear purpose. Now he had the chance to use that wealth for something truly meaningful. "You are right, mother-in-law," he said, kissing Grandma Alice's forehead. "I will accept the project. And now go upstairs and tell my daughter that you are going to truly marry her," Grandma Alice ordered. "She is radiant, but still insecure. She needs to hear from you that it's forever." David climbed the stairs, smiling. His life had changed completely in 2 months, but each change had made him happier, more complete. He had a family that loved him, a purpose that motivated him, and a woman he wanted by his side forever. When he entered the room, he found Sarah looking out the window at the garden where Lily was playing with a doll that Alex had bought for her. "David," she said without turning, "I just realized something." "What?" "For the first time in my life, I'm not afraid of the future," she said, finally turning to face him, "and that is because of you." David hugged her, feeling that he was finally exactly where he was meant to be. They had challenges ahead, blending 2 different families, raising Lily together, dealing with the complexities of a relationship that began under extraordinary circumstances. But they also had love, commitment, and the determination to build something lasting and beautiful. "Sarah," he said, gently kissing her neck, "how about we start planning our wedding?" "Our wedding," she repeated, savoring the words. "I like how that sounds." Outside, Lily laughed loudly as she played, unaware that the adults she loved were planning to officially unite the family she already considered perfect. Sometimes miracles really do happen, David thought. Sometimes it just takes a child to whisper a secret to the right Santa Claus. The last Saturday of December arrived with that warm weather that only a New York summer can offer at the end of the year. The house in the West Village had transformed into a true center of preparations for the wedding that would take place in the garden at 5 in the afternoon. Only a few hours were left, and the mix of nerves and joy was palpable in every corner of the residence. Sarah was in the master bedroom, being helped by Grandma Alice and Helen Carter, the director of Lily's school, who had become a close friend of the family. The dress was simple yet elegant, an off-white silk design that David had insisted on buying at a boutique on Fifth Avenue, but that Sarah had personally chosen to ensure it wasn't overly luxurious. "My daughter, you look beautiful," Grandma Alice said, adjusting the delicate veil in Sarah's hair. "Your father would be proud to see how you have become a strong woman and found a good man." Sarah smiled through the tears that threatened to smudge her soft makeup. "Thank you, Grandma Alice, for everything, for raising me, for taking care of Lily, for accepting the David in our family." "There's no need to thank me," replied Grandma Alice, her own tears betraying the emotion she was trying to hide. "Family is about taking care of each other, and now our family has grown bigger and stronger." Sarah watched the interaction between mother and daughter with a nostalgic smile. "Alex, can I say that I've never seen a family come together in such a beautiful way? The love you all share is inspiring." Laughter and conversation floated in from the garden. The guests had started to arrive. There were about 50 people, David's co-workers, some teachers from the schools where Sarah taught, neighbors who had become friends, and Alex, who was serving as the master of ceremonies alongside Lily. In the next room, David adjusted his tie for the 10th time, supervised by Alex and Ryan, his assistant, who had become much more than an employee. He was practically a younger brother. "Dad, you're more nervous about this wedding than you've ever been about any business deal in your life," Alex observed, laughing. "That's because this is infinitely more important than any business," David replied, checking his watch. "Alex, are you sure you have the rings?" "For the 20th time, yes, Dad. They're right here," Alex said, tapping his suit pocket. "And Lily checked 3 times too." Ryan smiled, watching David's transformation over the past few months. The cold, calculating businessman had become a warm man, engaged with family, concerned with emotional details rather than just financial ones. "David," Ryan said, "can I give you early congratulations? Seeing you like this, truly happy, is one of the best things I've ever witnessed." "Thank you, Ryan, and thanks for helping me with all the research on Sarah in the beginning. If you hadn't been so efficient—" "Ah, so that's why you had me investigate a teacher!" Alex exclaimed, feigning indignation. "Dad, you're a stalker!" The three laughed, easing the tension of the moment. In the garden, Lily circulated among the guests, wearing a light blue dress with a white flower crown that she had chosen herself. At 8 years old, she had celebrated her birthday the previous month. She acted like a perfect little hostess, ensuring everyone felt welcome. "Mrs. Johnson," she said to an elderly neighbor, "would you like to sit in the shade? Alex can bring a cushion for your chair." Lily's social maturity impressed everyone. Dr. Roberts, the doctor who had operated on Sarah, watched the girl with admiration. "Grandma Alice," he said, approaching Lily's grandmother, "your granddaughter is exceptional. The way she cared for her mother during recovery and now how she organizes this wedding, she has a special gift." Grandma Alice smiled proudly. "Lily has always been special. She sees people's hearts and knows exactly what they need. She was the one who brought this whole family together." "How so?" "She was the one who whispered the secret to David when he was dressed as Santa Claus. If it weren't for her, none of this would have happened," explained Grandma Alice. "Lily has a way of making miracles happen." On the other side of the garden, Alex was checking the final details with the officiant, a family friend. The young man had taken on the responsibility of coordinating the ceremony with touching seriousness. "Dr. Roberts," he said to the officiant, "is my family ready?" "They're all ready, Alex. And how are you feeling about officially gaining a stepmother and a little sister?" Alex smiled, looking at Lily, who was helping arrange the final decoration details. "Doctor, I've had them for months. Today is just to make official what already exists in the heart." At 5 o'clock sharp, the guests took their places in the garden. White chairs had been set up in a semicircle around a small altar decorated with wildflowers, sunflowers, daisies, and white roses that Grandma Alice had insisted on, including because they were real flowers, not those expensive things that have no scent. The music began, an instrumental version of 1,000 Years, played by a string quartet that David had hired. Alex stood next to the officiant, looking handsome in his navy suit, carrying the rings and a nervous smile. Lily entered first, scattering rose petals along the path with the seriousness of someone on the most important mission of their life. Her blue dress swayed gently as she walked, and she discreetly waved to some familiar guests. Then David walked down the makeshift aisle in the garden. He looked sharp in a charcoal grey suit, but his eyes were searching for only one person. When he positioned himself next to the officiant, beside Alex, his eyes turned to the entrance of the house. And then Sarah appeared. She was radiant. Her health had returned completely. Her cheeks were rosy, her eyes sparkled, and she walked with the natural grace that had always characterized her. Grandma Alice accompanied her, taking on the traditional role of the father, proud and emotional. David felt his heart race when she smiled at him. In that moment, he remembered everything they had been through together. Their first meeting at the mall, the first visits to Lily's school, the fears during the surgery, the nights caring for her during recovery, the conversations about the future and family. When Sarah reached the altar, Grandma Alice gently kissed her forehead and whispered, "Be happy, my daughter. You both deserve it." The officiant smiled at the couple and the two children flanking them. "We are here today to celebrate not only the union between David and Sarah, but the officialization of a family that has existed for months." David took Sarah's hands, noticing that she was trembling slightly, not from fear, but from emotion. "David Smith," the officiant began, "do you take Sarah Johnson as your wife, promising to love her, respect her, and care for her and her daughter as if they were your own family?" "I do," David replied firmly, his voice filled with conviction, "and I promise to be a man, husband, and father they deserve." "Sarah Johnson," continued the officiant, "do you accept David Smith as your husband, promising to love him, respect him, and include him in your family as your partner and companion in life?" "I do," said Sarah, her voice clear, despite the tears shining in her eyes, "and I promise to build with him the loving home our children deserve." Alex stepped forward with the rings, handing Sarah's to David first. "With this ring," said David, sliding the white gold band onto Sarah's finger, "I promise to love you on happy days and on difficult days, in health and in sickness, in wealth and in poverty. I promise to be your partner, your friend, and your love forever." Sarah took David's ring with hands that no longer trembled. "With this ring," she said, placing the ring on his finger, "I promise to love you with all my strength, to support all your dreams, and to build with you a family based on love, honesty, and joy. I promise to be your wife, your friend, and your love forever." The officiant smiled. "By the authority vested in me by the law, I now declare you husband and wife. David, you may kiss your wife." David kissed Sarah gently, sealing not just their union, but years of dreams and hopes. The guests applauded, but the sound was drowned out by Marina's joyful screams. "Now, we are a real family," she shouted, running to hug both David and Sarah. "I knew it would work out." Alex joined the embrace, and for a moment the four of them stood there, united in the garden decorated with simple flowers, surrounded by people who loved them. Grandma Alice wiped her tears with a handkerchief she had saved especially for that moment. Ryan discreetly photographed everything. The guests smiled, touched by the authenticity of the emotion they were witnessing. "David," Marina whispered in his ear, "do you remember what I asked Santa Claus at the mall?" "I remember, little." You asked for your mom to get better." "Yeah. But I also asked for something I didn't tell anyone," she said, still whispering. "I asked for a complete family, with a dad, a mom, a brother, and a grandma, and Santa brought it all." David smiled, hugging Marina tighter. "You know what? I think that Santa was really special." "I always knew," Marina said confidently. "Some Santas are truly magical." The party that followed was simple but full of joy. Grandma Alice had insisted on cooking some typical Midwestern dishes, which mixed with the catered buffet to create an eclectic menu that perfectly reflected the personality of that family. Alex gave an emotional speech about gaining a mom and a sister, thanking Sarah for bringing joy back to their dad and Marina for teaching him the true meaning of family. Dr. Roberts toasted to Sarah's health, announcing that her most recent tests showed a complete recovery and that she was officially cured. Grandma Alice, emotional, spoke about how she had raised Sarah alone and now saw her daughter building the family she'd always dreamed of having. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, David pulled Sarah into a dance in the small space they had reserved in the garden. "Mrs. Smith," he said, smiling, "how does it feel to be a married woman?" "Mr. Smith," she replied, "I feel complete for the first time in my life." They danced slowly, watched by their children, Grandma Alice, and the friends who had gathered to celebrate their unexpected union. "David," Sarah said softly, "thank you." "For what?" "For listening to Marina's whisper that day, for caring, for fighting for us even when I was being difficult and stubborn." David spun her gently. "Sarah, thank Marina. She was the real hero of this story. She knew from the very first moment that we were meant for each other. How can a 7-year-old be so wise? Maybe because children see with their hearts, not with their heads, David philosophized. Marina saw a family where we saw complications. As the night went on and the guests began to say their goodbyes, the family gathered in the garden for one last moment together. Marina was sleepy in Alex's lap. Grandma Alice was organizing the final details of the party, and David and Sarah sat side by side on the swing he had installed under the jabuticaba tree. "David," Sarah said, resting her head on his shoulder, "can I confess something to you?" "Of course." "I fell in love with you that first day at the school door, when you admitted that you were Santa Claus. Your honesty disarmed me, but I was very afraid to believe it could be true. And now? Now I know that sometimes miracles really do happen. Sometimes a child whispers a secret that changes entire lives," she said, looking at Marina sleeping in Alex's arms. "And sometimes love finds a way to overcome all fears and difficulties." David kissed the top of her head, feeling a deep peace. His life had changed completely in less than a year. He had gone from a lonely, bitter businessman to a happy husband and father. "Sarah," he said softly, "do you think Marina will remember this day when she grows up?" "I'm sure she will. But do you know what she will remember most?" "What?" "That a family can form in any way, as long as it is based on true love," Sarah said. "And that sometimes the best gifts come disguised as challenges." Grandma Alice approached them, carrying Marina, who had completely fallen asleep. "I'm going to take this little one to bed," she announced. "Alex, are you going to sleep here tonight?" "I sure am, Grandma. I won't miss the first official night of our reunited family," Alex replied, smiling. After Grandma Alice and Alex went into the house with Marina, David and Sarah were left alone in the garden, cradled. The soft sound of crickets and the fragrance of flowers surrounded them. "David," Sarah said after a long silence, "what is your greatest wish for our family?" David thought for a moment. "That we continue to grow together. That Lily becomes a strong and confident young woman. That Alex finds his way in life knowing he has a family that loves him, and that Grandma Alice remains the wise matriarch who keeps us all in line," he said, pausing, "and that you and I grow old together, creating happy memories every day." "And my wish," Sarah said, "is that we never forget how we got here. That we always remember that our family started with a whisper of hope and turned into a love story." They sat in silence for a few more minutes, absorbing the magnitude of what they had built together. A family born from the most unlikely circumstances, but cemented by the truest love. Inside the house, the sounds of domestic life reached them. Grandma Alice organizing the kitchen, Alex helping Lily change from her party dress into pajamas, the television softly broadcasting the New Year's Eve show. "David," Sarah said, rising from the swing, "let's go inside. Our family is waiting for us." "Our family," David repeated, savoring the words that still sounded like a miracle in his ears. When they entered the house, they found Lily already in her pajamas, insisting on showing everyone the photos from the party that Alex had taken with his phone. "Look how beautiful we all are," she said, pointing to a picture where the 4 of them were hugging. "We are the most beautiful family in the world." Grandma Alice laughed, tousling her granddaughter's hair. "Yes, my little one, and you were the one responsible for bringing everyone together." "I just told Santa a secret," Lily said, shrugging as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Sometimes that's all we need to do, find the right person and tell the truth." David knelt down to Lily's level. "And what secret would you tell Santa this year?" Lily thought for a moment, with the seriousness that only a child can dedicate to important questions. "I don't need to tell secrets anymore," she finally said. Now I just need to say thank you, because all my dreams have come true." David hugged Lily tightly, feeling that she had perfectly summarized what they all felt. There were no more desperate wishes or paralyzing fears. There was only gratitude for having found each other and enough love to build a future together. As the family prepared for their first official night as a legal unit, David looked around the house that had become a true home. The walls displayed photos of shared moments. The kitchen still held the aromas of the dishes Grandma Alice had prepared, and the garden maintained the flowers from the ceremony that would continue to bloom in the coming years. It was a simple life in its complexity, ordinary in its extraordinary nature, a family formed not by blood ties, but by conscious choices of love and mutual care. And it all started with a little girl whispering a secret to Santa, discovering that miracles truly exist, and sometimes they come disguised as people willing to open their hearts and embrace unexpected love. On the porch of the house, the swing continued to sway gently in the evening breeze, as if holding the promises of happiness that had been made there, and on the fruit tree that Lily had planted on the first day in the new house, the first flowers began to bloom, heralding sweet fruits that would be harvested for many years. The family was complete, the miracles were real, and love had conquered all fears.